It was just another day in court when the doors swung open and a young, confident police officer walked in with her head held high. Fresh out of training, Officer Collins was eager to prove herself. She had a reputation for being bold, sometimes too bold, and believed her instincts were always right. Sitting at the bench was Judge Harris, a seasoned veteran of the justice system known for his calm demeanor and no-nonsense approach to the law. His years on the bench had taught him one thing: respect for the courtroom was non-negotiable. But Officer Collins wasn't one to back down easily. When their paths crossed, tension filled the air. What started as a routine hearing quickly turned into a clash of authority, with Collins challenging a ruling she felt was wrong. Her tone grew sharper, her words more daring. Judge Harris remained composed, his eyes steady, but everyone in the courtroom could feel the weight of what was unfolding. The crowd sat in stunned silence, waiting to see who would break first. Would the rookie officer learn a hard lesson, or was she onto something bigger than anyone realized? No one saw what was coming next, something that would leave them speechless. Stay tuned. The courtroom was filled with a tense silence, broken only by the sound of shuffling papers and the distant hum of traffic outside. Officer Collins stood her ground, her eyes locked on Judge Harris, confident she was in the right. She had never been one to follow rules blindly, especially when she believed justice was at stake. To her, this wasn't just about protocol. It was about standing up for what she thought was the truth. Judge Harris, on the other hand, had seen this kind of determination before. He'd admired confidence, but experience had taught him that arrogance often led to mistakes. With a measured voice, he reminded the officer of the courtroom's decorum, giving her a chance to step back. But Collins didn't take the hint. Instead, she doubled down, insisting that key details were being overlooked. The spectators glanced at each other, sensing they were witnessing something far from ordinary. Whispers spread across the room. Was the rookie officer uncovering something everyone had missed? Or was her inexperience leading her down the wrong path? Judge Harris leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "You're walking a fine line, officer," he warned. But Collins didn't flinch. She knew she couldn't stop now. The room grew colder with each passing second, the weight of unspoken words pressing down on everyone. Officer Collins, determined and unwavering, glanced down at her notes, her pulse racing. There was something she couldn't shake, a small but crucial detail in the case that no one seemed to be paying attention to. It was the kind of detail that could change everything. Judge Harris watched her closely, his years of experience telling him there was more to her persistence than simple defiance. Was she bluffing, or had she really found something everyone else missed? His eyes narrowed, silently urging her to speak carefully. Collins took a deep breath and laid it out. "Your Honor, if we don't address this now, we might be letting the wrong person walk free," she said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The stakes had just been raised. In the gallery, spectators leaned in, captivated. The case had seemed cut and dry, but now doubt began to creep in. Whispers grew louder. Had the rookie officer uncovered a hidden truth, or was she simply overstepping her bounds? Judge Harris remained silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. His next words would change everything. The courtroom was on edge, every eye shifting between Judge Harris and Officer Collins. Even the bailiff seemed to hold his breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Collins' words hung in the air like a storm cloud about to break. The confident rookie who had challenged the judge now stood at a crossroads. If she was wrong, her career could take a serious hit. But if she was right, well, that would change everything. Judge Harris leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in thought. "Officer Collins," he said, his voice steady but firm, "you're making a serious accusation. I hope you're prepared to back it up. His eyes locked on hers, silently daring her to proceed. Collins nodded. I am, Your Honor, she said. Her heart was racing, but she refused to back down now. She pointed to the case file on the desk, drawing the court's attention to a timeline that didn't add up. There's a missing piece here, one that could prove we've been looking at this case all wrong. The murmurs in the gallery grew louder as tension reached its peak. Even the courtroom clerk stopped typing, leaning in to catch every word. Judge Harris glanced at the file, his expression tightening. Something had shifted, and now everyone could feel it. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then Judge Harris spoke, his voice low but powerful. Continue, officer. But tread carefully. You're about to take us into uncharted territory. Collins felt a surge of energy as she stepped closer to the bench, her finger tracing the timeline on the document in front of her. Here's what's strange, she began, her voice steady but charged with intensity. The key witness placed the suspect at the scene at 8:30 p.m., but according to the surveillance footage, the suspect wasn't even in the area until nearly an hour later. The crowd erupted into hushed whispers. Judge Harris raised his hand, signaling for silence, his eyes locked on the file. His sharp mind quickly processed what Collins was suggesting. If she was right, the entire case could be built on a false assumption. But before he could respond, Collins continued, her tone dropping slightly, as if she knew she was about to set off a bombshell. And there's something else, Your Honor, she said, glancing at the prosecutor's table. The witness who made that statement works for the same company being investigated in a separate case linked to this one. Gasps filled the room again. This wasn't just about a timeline anymore. This was a potential cover-up. Judge Harris' expression darkened. He tapped his fingers on the desk, considering his next move. Collins had just connected dots that no one else had dared to. The stakes were now higher than anyone had imagined. The air grew thick with tension. Every person in the courtroom was leaning forward, waiting to see if the rookie officer had just uncovered the truth, or if she was stepping into something far bigger than she realized. The courtroom was electric with anticipation, eyes darting between Judge Harris and Officer Collins. Judge Harris took a long, measured breath before speaking. Officer Collins, if what you're suggesting is true, this could change everything about this case. Are you prepared to present evidence to support your claim? Collins nodded and quickly referenced a document she had brought, placing it on the judge's desk. This report shows a financial connection between the witness and the company under investigation. The witness had a clear motive to give false testimony and protect their interests. Judge Harris studied the paper, his expression growing more serious with each second. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the faint creak of his chair as he leaned back, deep in thought. He turned to the prosecutor. Did your office know about this connection? The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. That silence spoke louder than any answer could. Collins had been right all along, and now the entire case was unraveling in front of them. Just as it seemed the truth was finally coming to light, the unexpected happened. A court officer rushed in, whispering something urgently into Judge Harris' ear. His eyes widened ever so slightly. Turning back to the courtroom, he announced, "It appears we have new evidence that complicates matters even further." Collins furrowed her brow in confusion. What new evidence? Judge Harris' next words sent a chill through the room. It seems we've been focused on the wrong suspect entirely. This case is far from over. The courtroom erupted once again, leaving everyone stunned. Collins stood frozen, realizing that the story she thought had reached its end had just taken a much darker and deeper turn. The courtroom buzzed with shock and confusion as Judge Harris called for a short recess to review the new evidence. Officer Collins stood at the front, her heart pounding. She had done everything she could to expose the truth, but even she hadn't seen this final twist coming. The case was no longer about one mistake. It was part of something much bigger, a web of lies that had been carefully hidden until now. When the court resumed, Judge Harris addressed the room with calm authority. After reviewing the new evidence, it's clear that the wrong person has been under suspicion. An investigation into this matter will continue immediately to ensure justice is properly served. His eyes met Collins. Officer, your persistence may have saved an innocent life today. Well done. Collins let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Relief washed over her, mixed with a deep sense of responsibility. She had taken a risk, and it had paid off, but it wasn't about proving herself anymore. It was about doing the right thing. As the crowd slowly filed out, Collins glanced back at Judge Harris, who gave her a nod of respect. She had learned a valuable lesson that day. Sometimes the hardest battles are the most important ones.